Oh, hi, I'm Doug Imbo from the Lewis Winch Company. I'm just setting up here because we're going to do a little bit of video on how to maintain your Lewis winch. Now, there's not a lot of things to maintain on a Lewis winch, but there's a couple of critical items that everybody that owns one should know. After I'm done showing you that, I'll show you some cable management tips and also some other tips and tricks that I've learned over the years running the Lewis winch that'll make it more fun and easier for you too. Now, this is a modern Lewis winch that I have in front of me, and what I mean by modern is in the last couple of years we've changed where the oil fill plug is. Now it's right on the top. It used to be on the bottom. I've got an older one here. I'll show you that in a minute. But to check the oil on the Lewis winch, stand it up on its spool. Now, from the factory, we put in 5 ounces of 80-90 weight gear oil. Now, 5 ounces of oil will come right to the bottom of that fill plug when it's standing up like this on its spool. Just like the differential in your car, actually. All you do, take out the fill plug, stick in your baby finger when it's vertical. If it comes out wet like that, you know that you're good to go. You've got enough oil. Now, 80-90 weight gear oil is the best gear oil for the Lewis winch. But if you're in a pinch somewhere and you don't have any and you need to add oil, even a 30 weight engine oil or even a spray grease will allow you to keep operating your Lewis winch. Just keep checking, make sure it doesn't get too hot until you get back to civilization and get the right oil in it. Now, I'll show you on the older model. It's basically the same setup, it's just that it's on the bottom, not on the top. So we've certainly improved it. It makes it a little bit easier. But all you do with, I've got the whole setup with the solo saw on here. Spin your fair lead around, stand that up onto its spool, and you'll see right here, this is the fill plug on the older model Lewis winches. Again, the level comes right up to there, so all you've got to do is take that out, tilt it ahead a little bit, and make sure that the oil just starts to drip out. Then you know you've got it to the right level. That's the most critical thing on the Lewis winch, is that that gearbox remains with approximately 5 ounces of oil, and not too much. Too much will blow out your gaskets and seals. You don't want that to happen. Now, some of the other things that need lubrication on the Lewis winch is this roller chain. Now, the roller chain is very much like the chain on your bicycle. Now, I don't want to start this up or you won't be able to hear me, but what I do is I just start the engine up, get the roller chain going around, give it a little squirt, only takes a minute. Once that's sprayed and nice and wet, you know that that chain is going to last for a while in the sprocket also. Now, most spray lubes come with a little tube on the side of them. If you put that tube in, you can get right down into the inside of that sprocket. Now, there's an oil-laid bushing inside of this sprocket, and if you give it a little bit of lube every once in a while, it's going to last a lot longer. The other thing that you could spray up is just your clutch, because this is a mechanical spring and shaft running inside this casting, and a little bit of lube in there will help keep that operating nice and freely. Now, one of the other things you want to maintain on your Lewis winch is all the nuts and bolts need to stay nice and tight. Now, most of them, such as this fair lead, we've supplied nylock type nuts on these, and they very rarely come loose. So you don't have, there's not much maintenance involved there, but just have a good look around your winch all the time and make sure that all the nuts and bolts stay nice and tight. Now, we recommend that you use a thread locker, a Loctite, or I'm not sure what this brand is, Permatex. Any brand of Loctite or a thread locker on any of the nuts and bolts is a real good idea. One of the ones that comes loose every once in a while, if you look over in this winch over here, is the brake itself. There's a brake bolt that goes through, and there's a bolt on the top of it that locks and holds that into place. Make sure that that's got Loctite, it can wiggle loose. Now, one of the other things while we're talking about the brake is check the brake lining. You'll see around the inside of this band there's a brake lining the same as what you have in your car. It lasts for a long, long time, but it eventually will wear out, so just keep your eye on it and make sure you've got lots of lining, just like you would if you're looking after your car. Now, there's two different types of mounting that you can use with the Lewis winch, the direct mount and the universal mount. Now, this winch has got the universal mount set up on it, ready to go onto your saw. Now, what happens is your saw bolts on here, just like it does to, this is just a little mini bar, just like onto any regular cutter bar on your saw. And so this little chain that's on here will get some oil from the oiler that's on your chainsaw. So if your chainsaw has an oiler, this will probably be kept lubed. Now, if you don't have an automatic oiler on your saw, you should give this chain some attention every once in a while too. A little oil just to make sure that it stays lubed up and running freely. Now, these bolts that bolt the little mini bar on, again, have nylock bolts on them, so they rarely come loose, but your whole saw is bolted right onto this, so that's a very two critical bolts there, as well as the two bar stud bolts. Make sure that you put some Loctite on those, on your bar stud bolts, and make sure they stay nice and tight so that your setup stays all together. Now, most of the other nuts and bolts on the Lewis winch are all nylock, and they very, very rarely ever come loose. So there's really not much more maintenance to your Lewis winch. Other than that, just keep checking your oil. That's what's critical.